Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on this beautiful earth. I got a guest that's 3 hours ahead of me, so I gotta respect the time zones here. I'm always excited. I always, state that I'm excited to be here. Um, we've been Tyler and I have been talking to our guest that's about to come on here for quite some time now. Fellow introverted, he loves AI, so we just talked about that. We're gonna get into this. I always make this awkward, and I always say that I make it awkward, but we're gonna bring in the guest here. Rob Nazzal, how are you doing from Icordica? Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Mark. I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I'm excited too. Even though you're always excited, there's no worries about always being excited.
Hey, it could be the opposite. You could be one of those dopey, sad people, but that's okay too. Whoever you
Yeah,
are. How are things? How are things on the other side of the continent?
things are going really well. I'm happy as a camper. I'm having fun with my personal life and my work, and yeah, my family. Everything's going really wonderful. I'm happy.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let's dive in here. Let's hear a little bit of your story. How did you enter the dental space?
Oh man. Okay. So I knew when I was 6 years old that I was going to be involved with computers. I I just I just knew that. I never would have anticipated getting into the dental space. I was working at a network security company, doing some cutting edge network data analysis, and a friend of mine that I had worked with in a previous startup had asked me if I wanted to take a look at their scanner. And they didn't know what they were going to do with it. It was a giant box bolted onto a desk. And they were like, "We don't know what we're going to do with this thing, but we think we can shrink it down to fit in somebody's mouth and make it 1,000 times more accurate and scan teeth with it." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I've never worked with hardware. I'm a pure software guy, um, and I'll take a look." But after a year of like talking to them about it, I had seen their progress with it. It was a company called Brontis Technologies. At the time, this was back in '05. At the time, the only intraoral scanner I think that was on the market was Ceric and then also Itero was starting to come on with the point and click concept of taking pictures.
Yeah, with the
But when I
spray, we
saw,
had the spray on the teeth, even right back then.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when I saw this thing, they're scanning in 3D, waving this wand around, and it was capturing 3D in real time. I was just blown away at the time. It
Yeah.
was, I mean, today it's very commonplace, but I mean, at the time, it was like mind blowing to me.
How that's turned the industry upside down, right? It's
Yes.
turned the dental industry like upside down. So I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, I was like, I don't know anything about dental. I didn't even know. I mean, I had no clue. I had no dentistry done to myself. I was, you know, no crowns, bridges, anything. I didn't know what any of those things were. Um, but I I love technology. I love software, and I love problem solving. And so when I came in, they said, "We've got these 3D printers. We think we can make models with them and help get the right information to a dental lab to make teeth with them, but we don't really know how to make a workflow and a process and all that stuff." And that's kind of my thing. I'm very good with like using technology to drive process and operations. And I was like, okay, I finally said yes, I'll do it. And it was just so fun. I mean, I came in, I didn't know what a dental lab was. I didn't know much at all. I got the pleasure of working with Mike Gerard
Yeah.
at Brontis,
Yeah.
and Mike was my I mean, he was just amazing as a mentor, just teaching me everything about dental labs.
He's now
And
at Aurum Ceramics, I think. Is he not?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, he is exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, but back then, I mean, I was he was helping me understand how these things work, and we were making, back then 3D printers. The printer that was required to make that work was a $500,000 machine called the Viper Pro from 3D Systems,
Yeah.
and we needed two of them, and we needed two remarkable engineers to operate them and do the application engineering for it. But it was just wild. Like at the time when you wanted to send a case to a lab, a digital scan, they all looked at me and were like, "What do I do with this file? I don't know what to do with this file." We had to, we had to figure all that stuff out, and it was super fun because
Yeah.
I was like, "This is, dentistry is amazing," and the technology behind it was really incredible, and I got to learn about this industry that was about to go through a digital revolution.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
the biggest takeaway for me was that there's a lot of fear, of like, what do I don't know what to do with this. And some people sought out education for it, and some people didn't want to acknowledge that this change was coming. And it was a great experience. It was very educational. I met hundreds and hundreds of laboratories, especially when we were acquired by 3M, and got to go through all of that. And then after that experience, one of my beta customers for Brontis was Bob Cohen. I did tons of test cases with him. I mean, crazy number of test cases with him. And he eventually asked me if I wanted to start a business with him. Because I had been telling him, I said, I think this area needs a milling center, because I had seen how the milling center business works. And he asked me to do it with him. And I was like, no, I'm moving on to a different industry. And he's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, that's what tends to happen in dental, I think. Once you enter, it's like a black hole. There's no escape.
No.
Yeah.
I remember my first trade show was my first day was basically in Chicago, and I was going around trying to learn, and people were so welcoming at the show, and they said, "Oh, by the way, welcome, and by the way, you're never getting out." And here I am almost 20 years later, and I'm like,
well, it sounds like you've been a beacon of light for this technology boom. So, like good luck. I'm sure you, like all sorts of people have got you roped in. So now we're now you've fast forward here. You've started Icortica. How did that all? Why? What inspired you to get into? I can guess the answer, but I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, so at Brontis, we used a lot of data to monitor our customers' behaviors.
Yeah.
To understand who was using the scanner and not. And then when Bob and I started CAP together, we used a lot of data to understand what was going on with our customers. And
let's pause here. This is a really good topic. How crucial, how vital is data in business, and this day and age? How crucial is it to understand your data in your business?
Somewhat biased.
Yeah, I know. I'm setting you up for like a slam dunk here, but you are biased. But it's if you aren't monitoring, churn, retention, all these things, especially, you just talked about how the industry's turned upside down with this whole digital revolution. Now there's these laboratories are launching different products. There's some products that there's no tangible physical anything in the laboratory. It's actually just a digital case that they're working on. Yeah. So, in launching all these new products, like a menu at a restaurant, you got to see which menu items are working and what aren't, who's dropping off, who's, where the opportunity is. There's, if somebody's coming into your business and purchasing one product, there's an opportunity here to now like expand that scope of products within, the clinic, right?
Absolutely. I think the experience for me when we started CAP, we had one customer. And when we grew to 10 and 20 and 30, I could actually keep track of most of that stuff in my head. I
Hmm.
knew we only had a few products, we only had a few customers. It was really easy to kind of monitor, which of our customers were happy and which ones were not, which ones had opportunity and which ones didn't. It was
Hmm.
very easy. And you sort of, when you start a business, your muscles develop around customer acquisition.
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time and energy on how do I acquire. But then when as we had helped 1,500 dental labs transition from analog to digital workflow.
Hmm.
And so you can imagine 1,500 customers is really hard to track. Then you have like multiple customer service and customer
Yeah.
success reps who have different viewpoints of how they think about their customers and where the opportunities are. And some of them aren't very analytical. And
Hmm.
so being data driven and putting the right information in front of the right people to have those right conversations with those customers
Yeah.
is very crucial. And
Well,
that
like,
became very important to us. Yeah.
and the question of like the point of the timely manner that you can just have that information in front of you, like there's a lot of old school RDTs out there that shoot from the hip and they run their business just based on their mind, but like what if you can just supply that person with the information that they need like in a time saving manner as well, you know what I
Yes.
mean?
100%.
Yeah.
The amount of, if you think of it as like every little step between what you know now and what you need to know, every second, every click, every unknown in the process creates more friction, which makes it harder for you to get for you to do that, to
Hmm.
get that information. So then you're stuck with either you go off and you spend a lot of time trying to get that information, which isn't the best use of time, right? If it takes a long time and it makes you very inefficient, or
Hmm.
you sort of choose the opposite, which is I'm just going to go in and shoot blind and not know. And I don't like that answer either.
No,
And
it's
so the
that's
answer,
a scary answer to me, right?
it's a super scary
It
answer
gives me
because,
anxiety.
but those are the two things you have highly analytical people who will
Yeah.
go off and do that, or you'll have people who will shoot from the hip, and in some cases that works,
Hmm.
but neither answer is efficient, right? And in this world, in this time where it's all about we're all expected to do more with
Yeah.
less, fewer people, fewer resources, less money.
Hmm.
You have to reduce your costs and but yet do more with what you have. The idea is we need to eliminate as much friction as possible between the thinking of a question and getting of the answer. And we see this happening in all parts of the world. Things where AI is introducing just quick access to answers that
Yeah.
would take lots of research. And we at Icordica aim to do that kind of thing for salespeople, customer service people, executives to understand what's going on with my business, where are my biggest opportunities, where are my biggest risks,
Hmm.
what's the right conversation to have with the right customer at the right
Yeah.
time. So that's what we aim to do.
Yeah. It's amazing. And I would argue too that, you know, your brain compute is capping your growth. If you're just depending on old systems. So, being spoon fed these things in a beautiful fashion just allows you to scale, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right on. I mean, in my mind, I'm a very analytical person, so I would be the person to go off and try to get that information. And I think but I also happen to have a degree in computer science and know how to use business intelligence tools. But
Yeah.
that doesn't really scale well for most people. And what I find our target customer base, which is like medium-sized businesses, don't necessarily have an entire team of BI people to go do this for them.
Right.
And so we want to help them operate as if they do have that, but just at a reasonable cost and ensure a very big return on investment. Because the smarter you are about this stuff, the better decisions you make, the happier your customers are because
Yeah.
you're engaging them in the right way, and
Yeah.
it just makes business sense.
Well, I mean, how important is communication too, especially when it comes to things like retention? I think people like, not to their fault, but I've seen firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. I've been involved in this with a client out here in BC, where there's been, you know, the hardest working group of people on the planet, but you don't know what you don't know. And there was a client that just kind of dropped off. They didn't know, but I mean, digging through Magic Touch reports, like unbeknownst to them, there was a client that was disappearing that had given them a significant amount of business, and it turned out to be, like they just went dark. So, and they, like, we're all, like you said, we're our hands are full. We're tasked with probably too many things, including, personal. So I think I'm a big subscriber to, like, let's simplify, and it's been a fantastic time to be a computer nerd. I don't have any degrees in computer science or anything, but man, oh man, like technology improves your quality of life. So that's where my heart is. So
I think one of the things that technology also does is it closes the gap between the absolute expert and the entry level person. It makes that gap so much smaller. And we saw this in dental, where when you had a master technician who could do this beautiful wax up, right? And then, for someone off the street to get to that level would take forever. To even get to an average level would take a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you see things like these tools that, even many years ago were making a pretty good initial proposal that gets you off the ground in a really nice way, that suddenly, like, closes the gap. And then there's still a lot of value to that master technician, but like we're not like that. We're not like this. We don't have this giant path to get there. And I think in many parts of technology, I think that's really what it should do, is to really democratize this, make it easier for you to have access, and create more consistency, especially in manufacturing processes or healthcare in general. I think consistency and quality are so important. If we can do anything to improve that, that's really what we should be doing with technology.
Yeah, and our time is finite, so why not speed some processes up? Like, there's always that fear, right? And the laboratory has been such a hands-on thing. Chairside right now, I want to pick your brain on this. We'll pause on this because this is a bit like a hot topic for me in the laboratory world. But so you, like, what's your experience with those folks out there that have been sort of the traditional old school cases where our Icortica has been brought into their business and you're seeing, like, amazing, happy results as a result?
Yeah. I think for the most part, the people that I have gotten the best kind of feedback from are the sales reps.
Yeah.
It's really, we really set out to make the sales rep experience much better for them, because most sales reps view CRM as something that should take information from them. So if they're expected to go to the CRM, the main thing is that they're expected to put notes in, which I think notes are super important. I mean, it's very important, but the R in CRM is about the relationship with the customer, which there's much more to it than just notes.
And it's garbage in and garbage out too. Like, I've been in the sales world where, it's like, people think it's like a micromanagement tool, but it's really, it's not actually. It's, as in a sales position, if you're using these tools to their full, then they're tools. If you're using them for their capabilities, you're going to sell more. And usually in a sales job, in a sales job, if you're selling more, that's
Yeah.
usually a good thing, right?
Absolutely. And so that's what, we really focus on making sure the sales rep experience from a user interface design, from a function, from the functionality that we create. It's all about empowering them with more information to make the best use of their time. When I was running CAP, and we had 6 customer success reps and 6 sales reps, and the question was, how do you decide what's the most important thing to do today? And every single person had a different way of doing that. And
Interesting. Yeah.
I thought they were all really good playbooks, like
Mhm.
all very smart, highly capable people. But it was like the the variation in it was so interesting to me, because when you think about the production side of a lab, you don't want variation. You want,
Yeah.
you want the process to go consistently.
Yeah.
And there are humans on, more humans and human influence on the sales side, but you should have a little bit more consistency and methodology in the sales process. And so
Mhm.
try to like make that, here's the best way to evaluate your opportunities. Here are your risks, your opportunities, and where you can improve your onboarding, for example. We try to make all of that information really visible,
Yeah.
so it's hard not to do the right thing.
Right. Yeah. And making that client sticky, right? You talked about
Ultimately,
onboarding. Like onboarding, I think the initial steps in bringing somebody on board is, the difference in between them just trying out the laboratory for one case, or and then walking away, right? And we
you
fight.
just said it so perfectly. That
Yeah.
is the biggest. It was fascinating to me is I watched your podcast, your episode with Dan
Yep.
from Barry AI, and it was interesting that he said once you get a patient in the chair, the hard part is getting them in the chair. And once you have them, they're gonna stick. Um, I find at the laboratory, it's hard to get the first case,
Hmm.
but you have a long road between the first case and getting to loyalty with
Yes.
that doctor, and that's actually where one of the best opportunities for labs to increase their retention and their customer lifetime value is right there in that onboarding process. I've seen it so consistently
Yeah.
across the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all about, growth is all about keeping people, right? It's all about, what can you do to like wrap your arms around them and show them the value that you're bringing. You can supply the best quality materials out there, the best crown, the best zirconia hybrid, or whatever that is. But it's I think the laboratory is such a people business. It's such a relationship business too. The
Yeah.
laboratory it backs the clinic up with knowledge. I want to segue into the next topic here.
Okay.
But we're seeing this explosion of chair side, 3D printing and milling. It's not a new thing,
Yeah.
but I would argue that, um, you said it yourself. Like the first 3D printer was like, what did you say, $500,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And how accurate was that 3D printer?
Oh man, we had to do backflips to make that thing accurate enough for,
Right.
for, for dental. It was crazy. And
Right.
then like a few years later, there's a $3,000 printer that's like, it doesn't have the same scale, but yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. So here's where my mind is at currently with like the whole laboratory and clinical relationship. I think you'll have like really good insight on this as well. I think it's important for like our entire industry, this conversation. Like what does it mean when we could now eventually 3D print a viable zirconia crown, a posterior zirconia crown? Like that's kind of the bread and butter of the laboratory business. I'm seeing now like the laboratories that sort of get that this is happening. I'm sure they're seeing, their some of their market share being eroded. what does this mean for our laboratory friends? It means changing their business, and like I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. This is like
Yeah.
I've been actually looking forward to asking you this question.
I mean, I think it's a great question. To be honest, I'm not really these all of these technology advances. They tend to have these very, very like low. They're advancing at a certain rate, but there's a certain inflection point where it starts to take off, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And so, for example, when we got into 3D, intraoral scanning, I was like, oh, this is a brand new thing. It's going to change everything. And this is the inflection point. And then, me being new to the industry, at that point, CEREC was celebrating their 25th
right.
anniversary that they had been doing this for so long.
Yeah,
And so, the thing is on this adoption curve, there usually has to be a stacking set of advances in the technology plus the economics for it to make sense. And
yes,
then you have to cross the chasm, and then and then there's this whole process. I think intraoral scanning is starting to cross the chasm. Is just starting to, and then I think that you look like you have a thought on that.
yeah. Oh, I think interoral scanning has become standard of practice. Would you
Yes,
not?
but
Would you agree with that?
I do, but there are still there's still a lot of
Yep.
people left that don't have intraoral scanners. And I
True.
think we're starting to leap across it.
Yeah.
What needed to happen was,
There are some cases too that, you need to bring out that impression material. There's no way to get that deep margin. Then that like I don't know if the scanner will ever solve that, because if the scanner doesn't see it, it won't pick it up. So,
yeah. Yeah, and there are other people working on, I mean, like even back in when we were working on the scanner, people trying to find ways to solve that as well. So I'm
mhm.
sure that'll eventually be solved. But
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, one of the things I saw at the laboratory, on the laboratory side, was when we started CAP as a milling center. We just started as a milling center, so we were
Mhm.
making substructures with zirconia, and we were making wax ups and things like this for the laboratory to then further finish for themselves. And then as full contour zirconia came onto the scene, and we were starting to bring that into the market as in our milling center, at the same time the mills went from about $250,000 for a good enough mill
Mhm.
down to, over the course of a few years, went to 160,000, then 80,000, and then Roland came out with this $30,000 mill.
Yeah.
And and this mill was actually superior to our 3-axis $250,000 refrigerator size mill. It was far superior in terms of its capability, and the materials had gotten into place. People stopped questioning whether zirconia was really going to be a material that would, so it took several of these things to happen at the same time, and then it just flipped. Like,
Yeah.
as a milling center, we had to make a decision about what that meant for our business. This is all getting to your question about what happens when your customer
No, this is great.
brings
Yeah.
the work in house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is
And
great.
so
Yeah.
we were faced with this question that, oh, we set up this business. We had this nice big mills that can do all this stuff that our customers can't, and so we are offering this outsource service. All of a sudden, the equipment becomes cheaper, better, faster, and really makes sense for them. We could have done campaigns about, here are all the reasons you don't want to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
Here's, we could have resisted, or we could say, look, this is the right answer for our customer. Why don't we become part of that solution for them? We're in a great position because we run this equipment. We see every single problem that happens with that equipment.
Yeah.
We are, we know how this stuff works, and why don't we bring together solutions for our customers? And so that's what we ended up doing. And that's actually when our business took off. I mean, our milling center business was very good, but
Mhm.
things really took off when we started looking at the best interest of our customer, and we changed our our purpose from we're a milling center, we changed our purpose to we help labs thrive. And when we made that transition, we found our purpose, and the rest is history. So for
Love it. Yeah.
to bring this back to the dentist, my recommendation is not to, I would not resist this. I think that's going to not. I don't think that's going to end well, because when the ease of use and the economics, it's those two things, and with that comes materials have to make sense.
Yeah,
the workflows have to make sense. There's still a number of things to work out. We have to be prepared for that. So, for example, in our milling center, we recognized that our milling center wasn't going to be as busy with the basics. So we moved into custom abutments. We started moving into all-on-4, things that were more complicated, more sophisticated, took more expertise, and we went upmarket on those things. And our milling center never shrank; it always grew because of that. So that's my personal philosophy on that. But I'm sure there are differing opinions out there.
Well, I like through this, I really get the feel that you definitely had the pulse of what was going on too. Like, that's crucial. Like, to just not put your head in the sand and really have eyes on the game and understand that things are transitioning and adapt and find your purpose. Purpose is everything. I think that's your value that you bring, right? So if you don't have that clearly defined, that's trouble, I think, for any business. Then it's like, why am I subscribing? Why am I giving you dollars? Like, you have to define that and find your place. I like, laboratory has that place in the industry. I don't think laboratory is going away. By any stretch of the imagination. I think it's such a huge checkpoint for the industry, in terms of, the quality that the patient gets, that alone. What segment of the laboratory business is growing at rapid breakneck speeds? What are you seeing in terms of, working with all these labs? Like, what business, what categories are growing the fastest?
What I'm in talking to the labs, I am seeing, actually, it's I wouldn't call it a category maybe, but to our earlier conversation, I do see that there is a big increase in intraoral scans coming into the lab. So I actually see that as very satisfying as someone who's been involved in that. Yeah. In
terms of a percentage, like what are you seeing analog versus digital these days? And it seems to be different where you are geographically too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have one customer who actually said, I'm not going to accept analog cases anymore.
Really?
Which is fascinating.
That is fascinating. Yeah. Why?
Yeah. Just because, it's really interesting. It just wants, it's a much more efficient process for them. They have just nailed it in terms of the value proposition, and they really have grasped how to make it successful for their business. And they like the economics, they like the business, they like the customers who have adopted scanners are kind of more of a fit for them.
Sure.
And
that
makes
sense.
It just works for them.
Yeah,
so, but on the other hand, there are other people who are going into that. But you can't, it might be harder to do some of those more complex cases, right? So you sort of have other people that are looking. I see a lot of people, pushing on the all-on X side of things, and then the other piece that I'm seeing that I wouldn't say is rapidly growing, but it's something I'm seeing that the labs are really eager to figure out. Is it's almost the last frontier of digital manufacturing is the digital denture side of things.
Yeah.
I would say it feels like it's not quite sorted out yet, in terms of what's the right recipe of machine materials and software. But it looks like it's at that same stage that we were at with, zirconia, with fixed, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. So
we have a mutual friend that would say that he's nailed it, though.
Okay. I mean, you hear those pockets of it, right?
Yeah.
It's not, it hasn't been like a wave of transition that we have seen with, zirconia manufacturing, for
Yeah.
example. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
It's cool. Like the digital denture, like now we're talking about like, what does that mean for denturists even too, right? That's wild stuff. Such a, like a really hands-on process now. Like it's, this stuff's just kind of blowing my mind, right? Like even I've been at a denturist conference, and we're walking around. It's like intraoral scanner, resin. They're getting into the digital game too. It's kind of unavoidable here.
yeah.
It's crazy. So in terms of like, let's dive back into Icordica. How is this streamlining the sales reps process now? Like, what is it with the tool that just makes it that much easier for the whole sales process?
Sure. So lab management systems are typically designed to help you get a case from in the door to out the door and invoiced and paid, right? They're optimized for that, but there's so much valuable data that can be used for other purposes, and understanding what is the nature of your relationship with your customer. And so what we do is provide an interface for sales reps, sales managers, customer service reps and managers, and also the management team to get near real-time information about what's going on with their customers, and doing it in an interface that is very easy to use. We've spent a ton of time and energy just making it super easy to use, putting everything in graphical format with the ability to go from a very high level picture of the business and noticing that something is maybe wrong. Like, you have a red indicator that there's, maybe a handful of customers who've only sent one case, for example, and then being able to click on that and drill down into those customers, and then click on that and see, okay, here's a conversation I could be having with this customer based on what I see. So to go from the 10,000 foot level all the way down to what conversation could I have to change this, right? Is what action can I take? That's really what we do. And so that is also why salespeople are drawn to the tool, because it's not sucking information out of them necessarily. They're eager to put the information in because it just gave them something to do that's going to move the needle. And I think like I'm trying to really put that value in front of the reps, because people don't want another piece of software to use. They want to go solve a problem, right?
Yes.
So
yeah, we don't want more make work projects, right? Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Now, like, give me an example of, out in the fields, a client that's just going gangbusters and using the tool to its full extent, and now they're like getting rewarded because of it.
Yeah. So, most the biggest use case is that the rep is, maybe sitting in the parking lot about to go visit the dentist, and they pull up the tool and they just have a better conversation based on, I call it the 5-second prep sheet. So
Yeah.
you pull up the account, you walk in, and you just have a better conversation. So what we're helping our labs, most of the labs that I engage with the exception of a couple, most of them, the biggest area for improvement is in the onboarding process. So when they're, we all know about customer acquisition costs, right? Like you probably have numbers on what the average cost is for a lab to acquire a new customer. What I found is people usually give me between $1,000 and $1,500 is what it ends up costing. Now, if you sell let's be generous and say that you sell a crown and you make $80 to $120 of gross margin on that one case that you did with them, I think that's a losing proposition, right? You're gonna you have to do at least 10 cases to earn back what it costs you to get that customer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but by the time you get to that 10th case, you probably have a real customer who's engaged. And so this is what we have done for our clients is that they engage with the software. We do an onboarding program to help them get focused on the key areas of their business that have the most opportunity. So usually it's with the onboarding, and then we identify customers who are most labs have. Most dentists work with between 2 to 4 laboratories, at least in
Yeah.
the U.S. I don't know if that's the case
I think it's the same up here for sure. Yeah.
So we call this a share of wallet problem, or share of chair, is what the dental industry calls it. So if the dentist is spending, I don't know, let's say $4,000 a month on lab services, what's your share of that chair? And so we help to highlight that for the laboratory. So now that we've helped on, you get the customer in the door and you're keeping them, then it's about how do you deepen the relationship with them in the other areas. So if they only came to you for removables, and you're not getting any fixed work from that dentist, most likely there is fixed work being done, and we highlight that for the rep for the marketing team, and we help them see how big the opportunities are. We size the opportunity based using statistics of how other customers behave.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also engage in helping them set up marketing automation so that those customers can receive a highly targeted message about their particular cross-sell, upsell, or recovery opportunity to deepen the relationship with
So
them.
now is this like a drip campaign, email campaign sort of situation?
Yeah, exactly. So let's say you have like you're a lab and you just got a new dentist, and they get through their onboarding process and they're consistently sending you, I don't know, removable work. And that dentist, now you want to engage them on doing fixed. Maybe you want to do some implant work with them, and maybe you also want to do clear aligners with them. So what we would do is set up playbooks for all of those things. We would prioritize them as a business. You'd say, when I see a customer in this situation, the most important next move is for us to get fixed work from them. The system will automatically trigger a marketing automation. And as soon as the first order comes in for fixed, we unenroll them from that campaign. You don't have to like update lists and run, do blasts, or, you don't have to keep track of any of this stuff. The machine is just cranking and making sure that customers are only getting messages that are relevant to them.
It's a sniper rifle rather than just a shotgun blast. Yeah, that's so crucial. How I don't know. I get the shotgun blast of marketing things all day long. I want to, it's rare that I'll get an email that I'll say, "Oh, I'll actually open this one and not just throw it into the spam bucket," right?
Absolutely. And to be honest, I actually think even in these drip campaigns, it's really important that they're really educational. That they're
Yes.
not about, you should buy fixed from us. It should be something educational about a tip, a trick, or something special that you're doing that's kind of interesting, that teaches something. And then that's what makes somebody want to, oh, I learned something from them. Learning and education creates trust. Trust deepens relationships, and then and then at the end, if you did 4 emails, maybe your 5th one could be an offer or an ask to say, hey, can we do more business together? I think that's a good ratio.
Yeah. And use video. Pro tip.
Yes.
Use video for the email. I see the data. Like it performs exponentially higher than just some text. Like, really put some thought into that educational piece. If I had anything to throw out there to anyone, I think the laboratory has so much to do with teaching on a clinical level about process and highlighting their offers and solutions. That if you can highlight that in a nicely shot video that's no longer than a minute, I think that's like, yes, a silver bullet.
I couldn't agree with you more. And honestly, I think low production value is totally fine.
Yeah.
I really do. I think low, like, I don't mean like, shaky camera and like, but you don't need
Yeah.
you don't need a whole like video team to do some of these things. You could do something that's like just a quick, useful video. I'll tell
Yeah.
you, at CAP, we did this 90-second video showing how we use the Roland mill when it first came out.
Mhm.
And I will tell you that, I mean, that thing went, I call it dental viral. It got 10,000 views, which is like not crazy, but in the
No,
dental lab
10,000
business,
views. That's a lot. That is a lot. 10,000 in the niche like that. That's a
yeah,
big deal.
yeah, it was dental viral. So,
Yeah.
we just took the cell phone in there
Yeah.
and no script, just cut it at 90 seconds. And it was such a powerful tool for us.
Yeah.
So
I
I
know.
totally agree with that. Another tip, if you're looking for unsolicited tips, there's this, when you're sending, even on a one-on-one basis, I find video can be super useful.
Yeah.
And there are some really nice tools for this. There's one called Loom. Have you heard of
Yes,
Loom?
I have. Loom is awesome, but I'll let you go. I'll let you talk about it.
Well, we
Yeah.
could geek out about it, but it is, in the time, the time that it takes you to write an email,
Yeah.
you can so there's this tool that just hooks into your browser, and you just hit record,
Yeah.
and you have your face and or the screen if you want
Yeah.
to show something. And so you can, for example, if you're onboarding a new customer, I recommend saying, "Hi, Dr. Smith, I'm Rob Nazzal," and you just make a personal introduction. We're so excited to have your first case. Thank you for sending it. And then if you ever need anything, here, you can reach out to me. You probably might have like the lab in the background.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of personal connection is unbeatable. There's no one.
Massive. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like that kind of connection versus another email from someone else just saying, "Hey, you should buy fixed from us." Like that's,
Oh, I know, like, and there's some labs that go straight into guns, like,
Yep.
like immediately into like, just cool your jets. Don't get so excited. Like, just, take your time with things, right? Like, just, relax. But yeah, Loom is amazing. And then with Loom, you can embed that video right onto the email campaign, which is dynamite. Does Icordica have any sort of capability to do video, or just is that sort of what you recommend that they get us?
It's not connected into Loom. It's a dream of mine to do an integration with them at some point.
Like
but,
an open API
honestly,
connection. That would be pretty awesome.
To have an API connection, just to say like, "Hey, you should record a personal video for this doctor." We actually used to do something like this at CAP when somebody sent their first order to us.
Yeah.
We would say the customer's name so that they would know this was not like a generic video. And it just went such a long way. I mean, we had customers that watched that same video over like 4 or 5 times, which was like mind blowing to me. But you talk about trying to get somebody to open an email once, but then they watch it multiple times. I mean, you're just bringing them in deeper and deeper. It's really nice.
And just being like, I'm sure Icordica has this capability too. Like, you can see who's opening what as well. Is that a capability as well?
So yeah, we connect. The way we send emails is by an API integration with MailChimp.
Yep.
And MailChimp knows who's opening what.
Yeah.
And then we display those. They call them engagement stats.
Yeah.
So we display those engagement stats in our interface. So this is actually a really neat thing to help people have. So our whole goal is to help the rep have the right conversation with the right customer.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say a doctor qualifies for 3 or 4 cross sells or recovery conversations, right? Fixed, removable, implant, clear aligner, whatever it is. But you see that they have really zeroed in on the clear aligner campaign. They've opened it 4 times. They've clicked on it twice.
Yes.
They watched. So you see that, and you're like, okay, well, I know what my entry point is going to be in this conversation.
Yeah.
In a way of not being creepy. I know some of this stuff can be a little bit.
No,
creepy,
it's fine. Like, engagement is everything. Like, that's interest. So like, if anything, they're happy to have that conversation, right? Like, if I've been in I've been in that situation. It is kind of, I actually have seen somebody click open a Loom video, and then I called them like literally 30 seconds after they've opened it, and they're kind of weirded out. But this is the day and age that we live in, right?
Yes.
You can bridge that conversation and then make that flow nice. But yeah, like if somebody's engaged in interest, that conversation is going to be so much more smooth and easier.
Yes, absolutely. It's all about being relevant and being helpful, and not trying to have force someone to do something. It's like they're never. You want them to be like come here and not okay. Please stop calling.
Yeah.
And that's like my visual for like is what I'm doing inviting more in, and usually it's education, it's being a real human, which I
Yes.
think Loom brings a lot to the table for that, and just really like being a problem solver as
Yeah.
opposed to I have something to sell you.
Oh
That's
man.
that's
Yeah.
just the wrong direction.
No,
Yeah.
it is. Like honestly, stop. I could not agree with you more. And I do advertisement all day long, and I see these things, and we've moved everything. Our whole mantra is just genuine storytelling to patients, and monitoring the analytical piece on that, and seeing the performance on those advertisements versus, hey, I've got a $500 deal on Invisalign, is night and day different. Like, you're talking about reducing the cost of advertisement by just being yourself and doing the right things, and just being genuine. If and every laboratory is proud about the work that they do. Just be that guy. Just be proud about it, and just lay off a little bit, because you are chasing people away. You are. You like I would. I've seen data to back that up. You don't want to chase people away. I don't know. I'm passionate. Like this.
I can tell. I love
this
it.
this whole piece here, and how you communicate your advertisement is this is where I live and breathe. So video is great. Just being yourself. Like if you have circled what your purpose is, and you identified that, like, yes, this is something that like the industry needs, then you just like focus on educating, and like, you can back me up on this, Rob. Like you're gonna go dental viral, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, I mean, it's almost a golden rule concept, right? It's like,
Yeah.
how would you want to be treated
Yeah.
in that relationship? And I think a lot of times there's a marketing person who has to get a thing done and doesn't have the reason for being, the real underlying purpose and the philosophy of how to treat people with marketing is just missing, and so they feel compelled to do this thing they've always done, promotional content that doesn't really kind of get under like what is the problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Why should you listen to us about this, or why would you be interested in this? Those pieces are often missing. A lot of my philosophy on this stuff, really, I didn't create this way of thinking. It's really
Mm-hmm.
Seth Godin. I don't know if you've ever followed him, but he's a remarkable marketer who, way back in the day when email was just coming up, he was bringing up the concepts of permission marketing, and really, like, that's how not to do spam. Like
Yeah.
basically how to build a relationship without spam, and the importance of attention is the greatest gift and the greatest asset. And
Yeah.
so if you are asking for attention from your customer, you need to treat that with a lot of respect. If you're going to earn a line in their inbox, if you're going to earn a space in the text message, if you're going to earn the right to have them answer the phone, you have to have something really compelling and useful to say.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna be ignored. And so there's permission marketing is probably one of the greatest marketing books out there.
There you go.
Recommend
Yeah, and so like, is Icordica then like, is there a space for a login for a marketer? Can they sort of monitor? Is now the information informing their marketing direction? Is that a piece of it as well?
Yeah, great question. It's 100%. There's a huge marketing piece to it because we have these playbooks, this concept of a playbook that plugs into Mailchimp. So the marketer, and the beauty of it is you have this ability to align sales and marketing finally,
Yeah.
right? So like usually like sales is on one track and marketing is on
Oh,
another, and
everywhere. Yeah.
here, yeah, and so here we have the ability for sales to see the engagement stats,
Yeah.
and for the owner to establish what the priorities are for the business, to say, here's the journey we want to have for our customers as they come into our business. We retain them. We want to get them in at least 3 or 4 categories of business, just not just one. And here's our philosophy on how to do that. You align that with the marketing strategy. You use playbooks in a very respectful way for the customers, and then you have sales who has all this insight into it, and it kind of drives the conversation, and everyone's kind of aligned on what are we going after, how does this work, and what are our customers interested in. So you can be really, I mean, it was the dream of Icordica, and we now have all of those pieces to align sales and marketing together.
Amazing. And is it informing things such as like, problems within process in the laboratory? I'm sure, identifying churn and retention and seeing drop off. Is there a bucket or a dashboard where you can see commonalities of categories that are not working? Is that also a piece?
It's a great question. We do two things along these lines. One is we have, when we do put an opportunity in front of a rep. Let's say you're doing a certain amount of fixed business with a customer, and then you lost it, right? Icordica is going to say, "Hey, you lost this fixed business. Try to recover it," right? And then that will prompt a conversation, and then the rep can go in and say, "Hey, I think we can get them back," or they might say, "I can't get them back, and here's why."
Right.
And so you kind of get to some of these root causes. Not for everything, because it's like, I think some people are non-confrontational. Some people, they'll just, it's not going to be a perfect science, but I think it will raise enough signal that you might be able to pick up what's going on. Is it our pricing? Is
Mm-hmm.
it our performance? Are we consistently late? Those kinds of things. That's one category.
Mm.
The other, which I think is really neat, is if the lab is good at taking notes. We have this thing called a frustration report,
Oh, cool.
which reads through all the notes. We have some customers that are amazing at taking notes. They take like hundreds of notes a day. But in there's usually 1 or 2 things that come up that's a really serious issue that management should be aware of, or that a manager should go follow up on to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And so we provide that report basically to everyone, but especially to management, so that they can see what's happening, especially in larger labs where they may not have that pulse on the situation.
Cool. That's cool. Survey capabilities. Can you build like a poll or a survey? Is that forms? Can you do forms and things like
Not
this?
not currently. The way that we would do that today, it's a great question, and I would love to be able to do it. Actually,
Yeah.
we're a small team,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I have
Data capture,
a
right? Data capture.
yeah, exactly. No, I think this is a really important area, especially when you want to know things that, like, do they have an intraoral scanner? Do they,
Yes. Yeah.
like a
Or
number of
or a
things like
new
this.
client survey, or like initial onboarding. You can find out A to Z on the clinic.
Yeah. So the way we would do that today is we would put a form link to something like Typeform,
Okay. Yeah.
or what's the other one? I can't remember, but but you'd put that in the Mailchimp email, and
Yeah.
then try to sort it out that way. But ultimately, I'd like to get that information into Icordica so that we can display that as well for the users.
What about reviews? Is there a review driver on there? And we like SEO is everything.
Oh man, I have not even thought of that. That is actually a really good idea. No, we don't have it.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's in terms of organic traffic coming through Google, man, oh man, yeah, reviews are huge.
That is a great idea. I can't like I thought of everything, but you're probably one of the first to come up with something I haven't thought of in a long time.
I gotta get my little like stamp or pat myself on the shoulder on that one. But
We'll call it the Mark review.
The Mark review, yeah. Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, right on. So proud of myself now. This has been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. Like, how are folks going to get a hold of you? What's the best course of action? I'm going to bring your website up as you chat here.
Okay, sure, yeah. So probably the easiest way, if you'd like to talk to me, you can on the website. There's a meeting where you can book a meeting with me. It says in the top right corner. It says get a demo.
Awesome.
It doesn't have to be a demo if you don't. If you just want to chat, you can just book some time with me. You can see my calendar in there.
Yeah.
And then, or if you want to email me, I'm at rob@icordica.com. That's ICORTICA.com. And I'd be happy to chat with anyone about this stuff. As you can tell, I'm really passionate about it and really, really enjoy this stuff.
I could tell a little bit. That's awesome. Any final thoughts, Rob? Any insightful things? A quote that you heard that really resonates with you? Anything to?
Wow.
To just put you on the spot.
Just put me on the spot. A quote that I.
No, just even a thought. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think maybe to this customer retention thing.
Yeah.
And a way to think about a complaint from a dentist for a laboratory is, for the most part, that complaint or that issue, when that doctor has the ability to just go away silently, as we discussed earlier, and when you do get that complaint, honestly, in terms of retention, that is your best opportunity to show that customer what you're made of and how you respond as a company to make sure that customer is taken care of, and that you also go through the process of making sure that doesn't happen again to any of your other customers. I think that is one of the most powerful points to prevent any holes in your bucket on retention. And it's probably too late when you're noticing that the customer is down in their sales. But if you can address it that early, I believe not only will you make that customer happy for that particular situation, but they will tell other people the story about what a great job you did to turn that situation around.
Love it.
And when they are your marketing for you, that's the best way to lower your customer acquisition costs.
I think you nailed it. That was perfect. I couldn't agree more. Rob, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to do this again.
Me too.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. And as an introvert, I appreciate the way that you engaged me. That was pretty awesome.
Well, good. Yeah. And as a fellow introvert, this stuff's tough, man. That like wheeling out the camera and getting in front of it. But like, we just talked about marketing and sales for the last, hour here. And it's such an important piece. Video is so important. It shows, we've just shown the public who we are. Like, yeah. If that, I think that stuff's important. So
thank you so much for what you do.
Oh, I'll keep going until somebody tells me to shut up. But I probably just will keep going because I never shut up. So. All right. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much. All right. You too, my friend. Take care.
Take care.